ICT Spring, to Kamel and his team for trying to put on this fantastic job in these difficult times. And what a year it has been. Who would have thought this was going to be the way we'd be hosting ICT Spring this year, that business would be disrupted in such an incredible way as a result of an enemy that we cannot even see. From March this year, when Europe went into lockdown, from where we stood on the edge of a cliff, we're walking now down the shoreline into the sea of opportunity. For once, it's not the financial industry that is at fault, as it was the case 11 years ago. This time round, the financial industry is the potential solution to this crisis that we have around the world. And within that solution, digital will be playing a very key part. I remember back in March when the Luxembourg and other countries around Europe went into lockdown, and the incredible agility with which the financial institutions managed to convert their entire operations from a physical business model into a digital one. That in itself has spurred incredible excitement within that community, within the leadership of many of the institutions, as we've heard from many of our partners at the LHoFT, about how the capabilities these institutions actually have. They are no longer the slow-moving beasts that they always used as an excuse to not progress with digitalization. They do have agility. They have the ability to move, and that spurs great opportunity for these institutions. As they moved into this digital operating model, both for their business, but in many other facets, the ability to interact with their customers changed, the ability to manage their operations changed, simple things that we've taken for granted for so many years. The ability to receive and send faxes became incapacitated as a result of this crisis. And they began to realize that perhaps they were not as digitally minded as they should have been, and have looked, coming through this process in the past 6 months, to bolster those operations, recognizing now that the potential threat of ongoing pandemics and the long-lasting impact of these crises in terms of the way business operates, in the necessity to use digital solutions, must be a core strategic force for their organizations. As such, be it that the fintech community here in Luxembourg, as it was across the world, as all business sectors were coming through a time of great uncertainty where potential business opportunities were curtailed, proof of concepts were cut short, and people didn't know where their future lay. Now see this huge kickstart to the regeneration of their business as banks and other financial institutions, administrators, fund managers look towards them, particularly in the sector of RegTech, which we do put a key focus on here in Luxembourg, to be able to drive their future business. The ability to manage KYC, e-signatures, identity, to manage their data effectively in a digital form, to manage their costs, to ensure that their operational risks and their business that they stay on top of these risks, and that they are prepared for any other crisis that may come and the continuation of this one. As such, I think there's a great deal of optimism within the community. Some businesses, as is the case for small, agile fintechs, have been able to pivot effectively, be it on a minor scale, to be able to optimize their solutions to cater specifically for the solutions that these institutions are looking for. Although new solutions have cropped up. Who would have thought that there would be such a demand for digital board meetings as there are today, where nobody can physically sit in these boardrooms to discuss the matters of governance? the ability to onboard new customers where you cannot meet with a customer face to face, and yet the entire financial industry still revolving around physical signatures has had to now move and to look in depth at the ability to be able to onboard these customers digitally. RegTech, without any question, going forward, is going to have a massive spurt in energy and demand. Other sectors that we see that we think are going to see increased demand from the financial community, obviously in this digital environment, there's increased risk from hacking, and so therefore cybersecurity and the ability of banks to shore up their technology competence in those areas to ensure the safety of us as their customers is going to be a huge priority. Without any question, another key competence of the Luxembourg industry, payments, has seen an incredible boom. Most payment companies, including the largest, such as PayPal, saw record quarters in those first 3 months of confinement, record quarters in their entire history. We all had to move to a digital means of payment, to shopping online. And some of those behaviors will continue to resonate as we move forward, even for those people that were not accustomed to shopping online. And all businesses have had to shift some of their focus, again, to manage their future, their growth and their risks. Other areas perhaps have not fared so well as a result of this crisis within the fintech community, and it'll be interesting to see how they come out the other side. Many of the B2C firms that were challenging some of the traditional institutions, particularly those in the banking sector, as we call them, the challenger banks, did seem to take a big hit where people turned to the trust of the traditional institutions to help see them through the crisis in terms of the liquidity distribution and the loans that were delivered and guaranteed by the governments across the world. Aligned with that, we saw a massive decline in the volumes being put through the peer-to-peer lending platforms, where in that period of March to June, the volumes on many peer-to-peer platforms for loans was a third of what they had seen in the previous months, and several of these platforms went bust. It will be interesting to see whether these platforms are able to stabilize themselves and come out of this crisis effectively. But overall, what we saw at the LHoFT, we were incredibly inspired with the ingenuity of fintech firms, and that ultimately is key to the startup sector as a whole. The ingenuity and the agility to be able to conform, to look at a crisis as an opportunity. And as we have seen in all crises the world has suffered over the years and decades, great businesses can come out of this because the world changes. The world has changed unbelievably in the past 3 to 6 months and will continue to do so. And new norms are becoming transparent, and the finance sector in itself is beginning to change and will look to digital to ensure its future competitiveness. We have a great lineup of speakers. I think I'll stop there today and let you hear from the experts that are coming up today. We have a great focus on international collaboration, which I think also within the context of the EU and how we can come together to be able to solve and work together to solve this crisis and come out of it relatively unscathed is going to be critical. I look forward to hearing from all of the speakers today. Thank you very much for this opportunity.